Hey y'all, I'm Carolina Tony. Today the road brings me to Bethabara. This is a small settlement that started back in the early 1700s, right outside of Winston Salem. And I'm sure people have heard about Old Salem as the settlement in Winston Salem where the Moravians were. Well, before there was Old Salem, Bethabara started with 15 men coming here, and they developed the small settlement that would later be moved to Salem. Today we are going to tour some of the buildings, learn a little bit about the history, and you get to come with me. And we'll get started right after this station identification.
In the 1750s, the Moravian Church bought almost 100,000 acres of land here in North Carolina. Their plan was to build a central trade city. They were going to call it Salem. It's the Salem half of Winston-Salem and what we call Old Salem Museum and Gardens today. Bethabara was their first stop on this tract of land. They were sending down 15 single brothers, unmarried men who had some necessary skills like farming and blacksmithing to build a community out of nothing. There weren't any other permanent settlements on that land.
All right, I'm probably butchering this all up, but this is the Gemah in Bethabara, right outside of Winston-Salem. This actually predates Old Salem, as a lot of people are familiar with. In 1753, 15 members of the Moravian Church set out on a long journey down the Great Wagon Road from Pennsylvania to North Carolina and established a small religious community, naming it Bethabara, or House of Passage. By the 1760s, Bethabara had developed into a bustling industrial trade center. After completion of the neighboring Salem, the population of Bethabara decreased, but it remained an active agricultural community until the 1900s. Since the late 20th century, Bethabara has been preserved as a historic site and park.
Never pronounce it correctly. Shrank. Basically a coat closet, what we would think of now. But this is an interesting piece. You can imagine with the height of it, it was actually brought in multiple pieces and then constructed here in this vestibule. Now, unfortunately, it's hard to tell when, particularly the time period it was from. We are thinking at least by 1800, but vestibule pieces of furniture typically were not recorded in an inventory for a building. Writing letters, things like that, because again, this would have operated as the main living quarters for the minister and his family. An individual in Birmingham, England. Most clock faces of this type during the 18th century would have been designed by individuals in and around London and Greater England and shipped over here. And we found with a lot of, although it was a Moravian individual who did construct the clock here, they were utilizing those faces from England. Tile stove that you see, from the records, it was an excellent source of heat for the structure. There is actually an additional one that's on the other side in the, what we refer to as the schoolroom, but most people typically look at it as a dining room.
All separated anyway, right?
That's right, yeah. I do want to point out there is an interesting aspect. This is actually a private kitchen. This is what the minister's wife would have been utilizing. So although the original did typically keep bees, or bees were obviously very important, like they still are today, for open pollination. Love feast mugs.
The what mugs?
Love feast. So it was pretty much a communal gathering or celebration that was common. We do celebrate it here around Christmas time, and typically the things that were served for the love feast would have been coffee. Coffee, again, not like we think of now, but they typically would actually brew the coffee with the cream already in it as it was cooking. So I've heard that makes it really good. I haven't had a chance. Schoolroom area. So whenever you guys are ready, put the filter in there.
No, sir.
All right, leaving the bedroom, we go into the kitchen. And what is neat is for this period of time, this kitchen is attached to the house, but it is on a solid rock floor.
So this was utilized for the education of the boys of the community here. Now it was sort of moved out of the Gemah house much later in the 1800s. And if I remember correctly, the apothecary at one time, the female students were taught.
The ruins of the apothecary shop from around 1763. This building was both the home and office. For medicinal purposes, the apothecary dissolved and distilled various herbs and plants, some grown in his gardens and others found in nearby fields. Well, from around 1807, it served the Gemah house and various other outbuildings. When the archaeologists opened the well in the 1960s, an original wooden pump stock was recovered and preserved. Foundation of the doctor's laboratory from 1759, it served as the workshop for Bethabara. Hans Martin Colbert Hahn, the first doctor in Wachovia, died shortly after his building was completed. He was followed by many capable and dedicated physicians. The doctor served not only Moravians in Bethabara, but tended to sick and the injured for the entire region. In this laboratory, one may have found the doctor caring to a minor injury as well as performing an operation and the common practice of bloodletting. November 26, 1806, this marker was erected as a memorial to the beginning of the settlement of the unity of the Brethren Moravians in Wachovia. It was moved here in 1850, having been placed originally at the site of the first cabin occupied by the Brethren in 1753. The first such memorial marker had been erected by the Moravians in 1770. Now, at the Moravian church here at Bethabara, there are 3 doors. The brethren, which were the men, they would enter by the main door. The visitors would enter by the visitor's door, and the women had to enter from the door around back. This is the palisade. The French and Indian War was part of the Great War for the empire that spanned the globe from 1754 to 1763. It originated as a struggle between 2 European powers, France and England, and spread to the colonies under their influence. The war would draw thousands of Native Americans and colonists into the bloody conflict. Repercussions would be significant. The costly war doubled England's debt, and English Parliament chose to pay the debt off by taxing the colonists without their consent. These taxes would spark unrest in the colonies, eventually leading to the American Revolution. And this is the portion of the foundation from the original Gemah house from 1756. This was a large 2-story building, was the first Moravian congregational house built in North Carolina, begun in 1755, and it was erected in 1756. 3 or more services were held here daily in German for the Moravians and sometimes in English to benefit the visitors. In the 1960s, archaeologists began to tear this house down, and when they did, they discovered older log house underneath. This was confirmed by a 1766 map of Bethabara. And that house was built around this log home. And the foundation here is a map of Bethabara. This was the Gemah house that we went in a while ago, and of course the palisade. Right past that is some more foundations: tailor shop, millwright shop, smith house, and pottery. On farther back is a village that's been reconstructed. Foundation from the Congregational store. There are a lot of foundations here where buildings once were. There is the garden, community garden. A lot of times you see log cabins that has been reconstructed, and the chink in between the logs will be cement. This gives you an idea of what the chink can really look like. Red clay. They would take little bits of board and all and go between the cracks and then pack clay mixed with straw for the chinking to keep the cold wind out. This is Hans Wagner's cabin. It's been reconstructed, but it's from the era of 1752. Hans was a hunter, a trapper, a miller, and his teenage son built this cabin in 1752. He left for Newland on the Yadkin River when the Moravians purchased the Wachovia and Tract. This was a dwelling house, or also a cow house, from 1754. Within weeks of the arrival, the brothers found the need to build a guest house for the strangers who came seeking the services of a doctor, lawyers, and tradesmen. However, this particular structure was converted into a house for cows by the following summer. This was the site of the original tavern. Accommodating strangers was difficult until the Bethabara built the first tavern in 1757. This tavern served until 1775, when the new tavern was opened on the east side of the extensive community gardens. This old tavern partially collapsed very soon after being vacated. All right, well, that is going to be a wrap for our trip to Bethabara, the original Moravian village. I hope you have enjoyed this trip as well as I have. If you did, be sure to give me a big old thumbs up. Be sure to share this video with your family and friends. But until next time, y'all have a good day.